y'all, I'm Emily, the Shady Grove Stitcher, and I love creating beautiful hand-stitched pieces. Welcome to the Pink Room, where I share my love of cross-stitch by showcasing projects I've completed in my quest to fill an antique cabinet my husband and I inherited from my in-laws.
Today I'm going to show you how I finished Batter Up by Little House Needleworks. This was the second or third pattern that I purchased. We really love baseball in this house, so this felt like a good fit for us. I used the called for floss and stitched it on coffee tea-dyed 32 count limestone Lugana. I felt like it was a piece I could take a risk on and try a new finishing technique, so I'll show you how I did it. Selly Stitches showed a finished piece with a quilted back, so I knew I wanted to quilt the sides and the back of this, but it's a little bit large to be a pillow. It's about 8 inches wide by 4 1/4 inches tall, the stitched portion of it is, so I thought I'd try to make a stand-up instead. I didn't want to fill it with crushed walnut shells because I thought it might be too heavy, and at the time I didn't have any sawdust, so I'll show you how I made that happen. Basically what we're going to do is make a quilted box. On the front, I wanted a 1/4 inch reveal around the edge of the piece, and since I'm a quilter, I plan to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so I cut 1/2 inch margin all the way around the stitch piece. Next, I cut my side and back fabric. The sides are all 1 inch thick, so to accommodate my seam allowance, I cut the top fabric 8.5 inches long by 1.5 inches wide, and I cut the sides 4 3/4 inches long by 1.5 inches wide. The back is 8.5 by 7 3/4. Next, I cut my interfacing and batting. And you might wonder, Emily, why did you put interfacing on this thing? I just have some lightweight Pellon 101 on hand, so I added it to the exterior fabric just to help the whole thing stand up a little bit better. I wasn't sure if batting would be enough to add the rigidity that I was looking for, and I didn't want to risk it, so I thought, why not? I cut the interfacing 1/2 inch shorter than the fabric on both the length and the width so that the interfacing didn't end up in my seam allowance. This just helps reduce bulk a little bit. You can see that I fused the interfacing to the fabric and there's about a 1/4 inch seam allowance on all sides. It's not perfect, but you get the idea. If you've never put interfacing on fabric before, it's super simple. First of all, there are 2 kinds of interfacing. There's sew-in interfacing and then there's iron-on interfacing, and this is iron-on interfacing. With iron-on interfacing, there are 2 sides, a bumpy side and a smooth side. The bumpy side are basically little glue dots that you melt with your iron. So you put the bumpy side against the back of your fabric and you press the iron to the interfacing. I like to press from the front. Some interfacing you're supposed to use a damp cloth with. Some people use steam in their iron. I just really encourage you to follow the instructions and see what works for you. I chose an 80/20 cotton batting basically because it's what I had on hand. I cut the batting 1/2 inch shorter than the fabric on both the length and the width, just like I did with the interfacing, to keep bulk out of the seams. I clipped the batting to my interface fabric and quilted the top, the sides, and the back fabric. I used a 1 inch grid on a 45-degree angle, but you could use any pattern you wanted. I didn't quilt the bottom because I wanted this piece to stand up and I didn't need batting on the bottom, making it wobbly. Since my fabric is sort of a dark burgundy, it's a little tough to see the quilting, especially since I used a matching thread, but you can kind of see the texture here. Okay, so now I started assembling the whole thing together, and we're basically making a box, so keep that in mind as we look at these photos. First, I sewed the top strip of fabric to the back fabric. Then I attached the bottom strip of fabric to the back fabric, making sort of a back unit. Next, I sewed the side pieces to the front stitched piece. Some people interface the back of their stitch piece so that nothing pulls when you turn it inside out. I didn't interface this and nothing pulled, so I'm just mentioning that in case you're worried. You could do it, you could not do it. It's up to you. Next, I started putting the front and back pieces together. So I sewed the top of the front stitched piece to the top strip of fabric for the back. I know this looks a little weird. You're looking at the bottom fabric, the back fabric, the top strip, and then the front, which is flanked by the 2 side pieces. I'm going to flip it over here and show you the back just so you can see how it came together. I pressed my seams open just to keep them nice and flat, but if you like pressing to the dark side, I say go for it. Next, I sewed the top of the side pieces to the top strip of fabric. When I was sewing it, I had to sort of fold the sides up onto the top, and it looks sort of silly. I'll unfold it here for you in a second and show you. So we're making this inside out right, and you can see that I've got both sides here sewn to the top piece while the back and bottom lay out on the table. Then I sewed one side piece. Then I sewed across the bottom, which left only one side unsewn. I stitched it closed but left a hole for turning. This hole is on the back side of the piece. And I deliberately put it on the back side of the piece because I was afraid that it might pucker or something would happen, and I didn't want you to be able to see it from the front. On a pillow, you typically have 4 sides, and we have more seams here since it's a box. So I would encourage you to do the same thing and put that seam or the hole that you're gonna hand sew closed, put it on the back side of the piece so that in case anything goes wrong, nobody can see it. Then it was time to turn it. I carefully wrestled it through the hole and ended up with this wrinkled blob. You can see my 1/4 inch reveal looks pretty good. My corners were all shut, so overall, I was pretty pleased. Then, and there was no way for me to show you this as I was doing it, I put a 1 inch wide by 8 inch long piece of wood into the hole and shoved it into the bottom of the box. I did this to give it weight and help it stand up. My husband's a woodworker, so this was just a scrap piece of wood we had. It's nothing special. Like I said, it's just to give the piece a little bit of something to rest on. And then I filled it up with polyfill. Now, Vonna swears that you need to pull your polyfill apart before shoving it into your stitched piece. So I did that because Vonna's the queen of stitching, but I really can't tell you why we do it. I think it's to reduce clumps, but don't quote me. So I pulled all my polyfill apart, I shoved it in the hole, I made sure to get my corners really good and tight, and then I used a ladder stitch to stitch the hole closed. You can barely see it. I bought my fabric at Hobby Lobby and it was not great. There are some pulled threads which I feel like are pretty noticeable given that this is dark fabric. So if I was gonna make another stand up like this, or if it was an important piece, I'd make sure I got a higher quality quilting cotton, but overall it was perfect for this experiment. It was fun to try, it was something new, and I'm still super pleased how it turned out. Y'all know I'm just a girl out here trying to fully finish her cross stitch pieces and sharing both her successes and her failures with her friends. So I hope this was either fun or helpful for you, maybe both. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below and I'll try to help you out. Until next time, talk to you later. Love you, bye.